This is Conscious Living. I'm Wendy Garrett. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. I hope you're having a good day, a good time, whatever you're doing. It's helping you to become more attuned, more connected, more aware, more enlightened, more joyful, all sorts of mores. And it's just, that's at least how it's happened for me as I have begun this journey of upgrading and realigning and reconnecting. It's just been an amazing process. And the more curious I am, the more that I uncover, the more that I allow that there are things and people and all sorts of other elements here that we have yet to connect to. It's just a joyride. Okay. It's an amazing place and time to be right now. I've got a guest, an interview that we've talked before, but this is the next phase of that. And if you've heard the interviews, you're okay. You're maybe a step or two ahead, but we're going to go refresh just because in case you haven't, and this is the first time you're going to meet my guest, then we'll catch you up and get you up to speed on this. The book is called, well, let's just start with several of them. Okay. There are 3 books. And so if you haven't had a chance and you want information on this, you're going to do Dancing on a Stamp, Dancing Forever with Spirit, and Dance of Heavenly Bliss. And you're going to find out all about them at garnetschulhauser.com. Garnet is my guest, and he has a buddy. His buddy is Albert. And sometimes you can see Albert and sometimes you can't. And sometimes Albert makes his presence known. Okay, just to say, he does. Sometimes he does. Garnet, hi there. Thank you for coming back to chat some more.
Well, it's my pleasure to be on your show again, Wendy. I'm looking forward to it.
You've been busy. You have been busy. Okay, first the books and then the events, the speaking engagements. Let's just go for a little bit. What happened to kick this all off for you?
Well, it was back in 2007, Wendy. I was still practicing law then. And I was strolling down the street one sunny afternoon in May, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a homeless man jumped in front of me. He looked like a typical homeless man with long, stringy hair and a scraggly beard and dirty, slept-in clothes. But there was something very different about him. He had these amazing, dazzling blue eyes that were penetrating deep within me. I felt like he was looking down into the depths of my soul, and that he knew everything about me. And at the same time, his gaze was sending me this wave, sort of this gush of pure, unconditional love that was infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace and security and well-being. So it was quite an amazing feeling. And so I stood there like a deer caught in the headlights, like I was in a time warp. I'm not sure how long, but it didn't really seem to matter because I just enjoyed basking in the gaze from this very different man who we'd never met before. So he was a total stranger who had come out of nowhere. And so then he eventually broke the spell by saying to me, "Why are you here?" And then he promptly disappeared into a nearby store. I went into the store to try to find him after a few minutes, and he was nowhere to be seen in the store. I went back out on the street, walked up and down for a while, but he had seemingly disappeared into thin air. So the very next day, I went back to the same street at the same time, hoping that I could find this man again. And after walking up and down a few blocks, I finally spotted him sitting all alone on a bench. And so I went up to him and I said, "Who are you and why did you stop me the other day?" And he said, "I'm a soul just like you. I'm here to answer your questions and help you on your journey." And that was the beginning of a dialogue I had with this man that went off and on for the next several months. And I found out that his name was Albert, and he was actually one of my spirit guides in disguise. And he told me that he had appeared in my life to answer my questions, but he also wanted me to be one of his messengers. He wanted me to write a book about the revelations he was going to give me during the course of our dialogue. And that resulted in my first book, Dancing on a Stamp. And then after I'd finished my first book, he disappeared out of my life for a little while. And then suddenly he reappeared again in a different format. I woke up one night in my bed. I guess I was startled by a noise or whatever, and I saw this ghost-like ethereal figure standing in the doorway of my bedroom. And when it moved closer, I could see who it was. It was my old friend Albert, except he was in astral form. And I said, "Hi, Albert, what brings you here?" And he said, "Well, I'm here this time to give you a different sort of encounters with the spirit side. I'm going to take you on some astral trips, some out-of-body adventures to the spirit side, to other places in the universe, to other places on our planet, because I want you to write about what you see and hear in your second book. And I'm doing this because I think that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and so it's easier for me to show you things that you can write about than for me just to tell you verbally. And so off we went. He literally reached out and grabbed my astral hand, pulled my astral body out of my physical body. I turned around and looked, and my physical body was still sound asleep in bed. And I followed him. We went up through the ceiling, up through the clouds, and hovered to in a high spot above our beautiful planet. And then eventually we went through a shimmering doorway to the spirit side, and that was my very first adventure, my very first trip to the spirit side. And so he took me on a number of astral trips that I described in my second book, Dancing Forever with Spirit. Then he came back again for another set of astral adventures, similar format. He would show up in my bedroom unannounced, and away we'd go. And this time we did a whole new set of adventures on the spirit side. I met a number of very interesting, wise souls on the spirit side who had some amazing wisdom to share. And I described all these in my third book, Dance of Heavenly Bliss, which was just released in March. So that's where we are right now. And I'm actually having, I'm about 3/4 of the way through my fourth book, which is another set of adventures with my spirit guide, Albert.
And see, that was my next question. You knew it. Yeah. What's the next book?
Well, the next book is more adventures with Albert, more astral adventures. I don't have a title picked yet. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the manuscript, so sometime in the next year it'll probably be out. And it's more wisdom from Albert, more discussions with wise souls on the spirit side, more trips to different planets in the galaxy to meet interesting civilizations. So it's really it's very much of a sequel to the first three books, but it's all new stuff. And Albert seems to have an unlimited capacity for showing me things, and he has a very set agenda. He knows exactly what he wants me to see and write about. So it's not a joyride for me. It's sort of like I follow his agenda. When he wants me to, he takes me where he wants me to go, shows me what he wants me to see. And it's all on his own timetable and agenda. So I'm basically his messenger.
Well, and then we're going to go back a little bit. Okay, first, this is from being a lawyer, a background as a lawyer, where everything is pretty much cut and dried, concrete. It's logical. It's this is a complete opposite of what I would assume a background for the lawyer entails. All right, how did you adjust?
Well, it was difficult at first because you're very right. My background as a lawyer, I practiced law for like 34 years. I was a corporate lawyer, very much of a button-down, straight-laced, stuffed shirt corporate lawyer. Never talked about spirituality or religion or anything like that or metaphysical topics. And so it was really quite a change for me. One of the concerns I had after I met Albert, and he told me to write a book, first of all, I was very reluctant to do so. Then when I'd written my manuscript, Wendy, I was really concerned about whether I should just throw it in a drawer and lock it away, or should I find a publisher? And I was concerned about the reaction of my former partners and colleagues and clients and friends and family, because it was very much out of character for how they knew me. And so after I struggled with it for a while, and after I just said, heck with it, I'm going to get it published, let the chips fall where they may. And so it was a lot of people, I raised a lot of eyebrows, Wendy, especially from the people who knew me before. And some of them, I'm sure, think that I've lost my mind, and I knew that would happen. But I've met a lot of very interesting, spiritually enlightened people since I wrote my books that have really enriched my life. And so overall, it's been a very positive experience, but very much of a different road than I was on before, that's for sure.
Absolutely. How did you connect with Ozark Mountain? Because this is Dolores Cannon. And if anybody, my assumption is that most people who are listening have a clue or have heard a little bit about Dolores Cannon. But that would be I think, a good venue, the perfect venue for you. How did that happen? Well,
it was perfect venue for me. And how it happened was when I decided to seek a publisher, I did some research on the internet about publishers who specialized in the spiritual metaphysical genre. You have to sort of pick and choose the right kind of publishers, to have any chance to have your manuscript accepted. Mm-hmm. So in the course of the search, I came across Ozark Mountain Publishing, who I've never heard of before. And so I read a bit about them. I saw Dolores's, picture on their website, and she looked like a very wise soul, very kind person. And I thought that's for sure I got to send my manuscript there. I did, and I got an offer to publish about 3 months later. And so I was happy to accept it, and it's been a great journey. They're a really good organization. Dolores is a wonderful person. As you know, she's published about 18 or 19 of her own books. She's been a hypnotherapist for a long time, a pioneer in that field. She passed away in October 2014, as you know. But I did get a chance to meet her in person when I was speaking at the 2013 Transformation Conference in Arkansas. So I was very fortunate to meet her in person at that time before she passed away. But it's been a great journey for me with Ozark Mountain, and yes, it is a perfect fit for me.
Okay, now I also want to digress a little bit and mention that too, because this is a new venue, and if you are listening and you're interested in this type of content and these type of resources, this is a growing, I think, in terms of experience and a networking event. This event gets bigger every year, and this year it was combined with the transformational type experiences and the UFO experiences, and it's in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, so in the USA. So what was it like? Because you were one of the presenters, and I see this thing expanding and getting bigger and bigger, and it's just amazing to watch. I haven't had a chance to go yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah, these are great conferences. This actually, this is the third time I spoke at the TC, at the Transformation Conference. It's held every year in Arkansas, which is where my publisher is based. And this year it was combined for the first time, as you mentioned, with the UFO conference. So it was in Eureka Springs, a beautiful little resort town. And as I mentioned to you before we went on the air, it's really a good crowd. The energy is really very positive. There's a lot of like-minded, spiritually enlightened people who come to these conferences. So it's a wonderful event, and I quite enjoy presenting there and meeting a lot of the people. So it's really a neat event, and I would encourage anyone there listening, if you have a chance, take in the Transformation Conference next year. I don't have the dates yet, but it'll be published on their website, and I'll publish it on mine as well.
And you'll also have a chance to check out some of the YouTube videos, because they do have a list of people who were performers and presenters, entertainers at the event, and then there's a way to catch up with that. I also wanted to mention, we're going Dancing on a Stamp, Dancing Forever with Spirit, Dance of Heavenly Bliss. Albert has taken a back seat very, very graciously to allow you to do all this presenting. But I do want to bring him back into the equation, because this is so unique. Even though you had to worry about others rejecting you, and, not having the same presentation of that nice, comfortable label lawyer. That's a real neat and tidy label. This other label you've got right now of spiritual seeker, explorer, transcendent experiencer is a little less, it's a lot more vague. All right. So bringing Albert back into the equation, though, the experiences you've had with him are so phenomenal that it makes everything else, in my opinion, pale. And so what is that like, your ongoing arrangement, your collaboration with Albert? Well,
it's very exciting. He's really a very interesting character, spirit. I mean, he's a spirit, but he's very interesting, got a great sense of humor. He's very wise, and he clearly has an agenda, which is to try to help humankind become more spiritually aware, and sort of help us cast aside our negative emotions, which causes a lot of violence, and embrace love and compassion. That's sort of his mission. I'm one of his messengers. He has many others on the planet who he doesn't disclose to me. But he's a very busy, wise spirit who really wants to help humanity on our planet, and that's his mission. And so he has goals in mind and to further those goals, he takes me to various places on the spirit side to meet with souls there. To see other planets, and it's all to give me a lesson for all of humanity, or to give us a nugget of wisdom and help us in our journey. And so he's a very determined, emissary from the spirit world, and I just love interacting with him, all the time. And you're right. After meeting Albert and dealing with Albert and having astral trips with him, my previous life as a lawyer seems very mundane and right now irrelevant. And which is why I resigned, retired from the law about a year after I met Albert. It just seemed like practicing law didn't really have any relevance to me anymore, and I really wanted to pursue the new chapter of my life, which was being Albert's messenger. So that was a big change in my life, and I clearly enjoy every minute of it, Wendy.
I can tell the energy in your voice is contagious. It's very, there's a lot of enthusiasm. I do want to say too that in reading it and finding out there are some things that Albert won't tell you. One of them is your future, but he does go into the past lives. Did that help finding out some of that information? Because it had to be intense, some of the deaths that you walked through.
Yeah, he did give me a few glimpses. He took me to, I've been to the Akashic Records and the Spirit side several times with Albert, and it's sort of, in there you go into a viewing room and there's this big holographic globe that's sort of where you can sort of watch past lives like you're watching a 3D movie, and he showed me some glimpses from some of my past lives. In each case, it was to teach me, a lesson or give me some hint about some of the past lives I've lived. And he's very selective about what he showed me. I couldn't just sort of dally there and view my past lives forever. He was very selective about it. Some of them were very distressing. Like I was in one of my past lives, I was hung for stealing some half-rotten apples that I needed to feed my family. In another case, I was a gunslinger in Wyoming in the 1800s, and actually a gambler, and I ended up getting in a duel and shooting another man who accused me of cheating during gambling, and I felt very badly about that. And in another case, I was a young lady in India, and my parents had arranged a marriage for me. And I rebelled because I didn't want to marry a man who I'd never met before. So I ran away from home, and eventually they found me. My father found me, and he stabbed me to death for dishonoring him and his family because I wouldn't follow through with the arranged marriage. Those are just some of the examples. Some of them were very pleasant, some of them very distressing. But it was all, he was just basically giving me a preview of what I could see when I pass over to the spirit side permanently, because there we can all go to the Akashic Records and view every one of our past lives or even past lives of other people just to see, how it all played out. So it's extremely interesting. It's something, it's literally a place you could just spend hours and hours and hours watching past events in the Akashic Records.
I wanted to ask about the New Earth because that's something that Dolores Cannon talked about a lot. Did you have that content before you met Dolores?
Yeah, no, the New Earth was described in my second book, so I had already met Dolores. I haven't read about Dolores' description of the New Earth, but Albert did take me to, our Earth in a higher dimension, which I describe in my second book, and which a lot of people call the New Earth. And it was basically is our planet in a higher vibrational dimension. And there it was a very idyllic society that I met. I met the descendants of a group of people whose ancestors had originally lived long ago on our Earth in Central America. And in order to escape an encroaching enemy that was very violent and aggressive, they managed, with help from Spirit, to do a mass ascension for the whole village to ascend up to the New Earth. So I met with the descendants of this group that had done the mass ascension. And
that's like the Celestine Prophecy. I think that's the 10th insight, the Celestine Prophecy, I think.
Yeah, I read that book, and I don't recall about that, but you may be right. But it was, it was a mass ascension. New Earth is a place where we can all end up going. We just have to raise our vibrations to match the vibrational rate of the New Earth, because you can't sort of get there if you have a lower vibration, which we all here seems to have. And it doesn't have to be a mass ascension. It can be one at a time or in groups or whatever. And there's been a number of people who have done it. And the simple answer is, everyone says, well, how do I raise my vibrations? It is quite simply reject your negative emotions like anger, fear, hate, greed, and fully embrace love and compassion. And if you can do that to a large enough extent, your vibrations will increase and you'll end up there. But, right now, for most humans, and I'm no exception because I haven't discarded all of my negative emotions, although I try hard, we're just not there yet, but it's a goal that we should all shoot to achieve.
Okay, so I know a lot of stuff from book 2 was based on past lives and taking some trips and stuff like that. There's even, I think, ETs in there. Book 3 this becomes more of almost like there's a time limit, an urgency, things have to happen, because this gets into the planet stuff, the things that we need to change. Did you sense a difference with Albert when he started giving you this information?
Yeah, there seems to be more of a sense of urgency in his game plan. He's never given me any sort of deadlines or timetables. He refuses to do that. But he really, he and the Council of Wise Ones on the spirit side really think that we're at a crucial point in our development for humanity, and we really need to sort of change our ways before we end up destroying ourselves and all other life on our planet. And so there is a bit of a sense of urgency, and they've been doing sort of a full court press in terms of sending messages from Spirit through many different messages and channels to get the message to all of humanity. And they do that through people who write books and people who host radio shows like you do, Wendy, and people who speak in public, is to try to spread the message that they're trying to encourage humans to really to change their ways and stop abusing each other, stop abusing the other animals on our planet, and stop abusing our planet itself with our pollution. And we really need to, their view is we need to change it fairly quickly because we have the capability of destroying everything. And there's been other human civilizations in our past, like Atlantis and Lemuria and a few others, where they've risen up to a very high level of sophistication and technology, but ended up destroying themselves and crashing and burning because they couldn't control their negative emotions. So and they're just really concerned that we don't suffer the same fate, and they really want us to sort of become aware of where we should be going and what we need to change. So that was really pretty much the theme of the adventures that I said on my third book, was just to for me to see different things and talk to different people and understand that we really need to change our ways and become a better civilization, a better human race that is respectful for our planet and for the other animals that share our planet. So that was the main theme, for sure.
Okay, what part of this is that how do you do this? Because this is a really, really tall order when there are so many of us, bigger picture, who are still stuck in the power phase of bigger, better, stronger, and not necessarily eco-friendly.
Well, I mean, that's very true, and that's exactly the main problem, is that too many humans are in pursuit of power and money and the ability to control other people, and in doing so, they sort of totally ignore the fact that our pollution is causing damage to our planet, and that we're abusing without good reason, abusing the other animals on our planet, and that we're really sort of become a very invasive race. It's like a weed that sort of chokes out everything else in the garden. And that's sort of where we're heading, and we really need to change our ways. And so, the people who are aware of what our problem is, like you and I and a lot of other people, it's our job really to not only to act in accordance with where we should be going, but to spread the message to other people, because we've got to encourage other people around us to understand what the problem is and how we need to go about fixing it. So it's really a matter of getting the message out in many ways as we can. And then eventually, and Albert's very optimistic, he says, things can look very bad, at times, but he has a lot of hope that we can turn the corner and change our ways and really become and raise our vibrations and get through this sort of rough patch in the road that we're in. So it's not a lost cause. He has a lot of hope for us, but we really have to be determined to try to make that change.
Well, in order to help give you a little more incentive and a little more insight, he introduced you to some really interesting characters. One of them was Mother Earth consciousness.
Oh, yeah, that was one of the most interesting trips I had, because I always had the view that, our planet was just a bunch of inert molecules forming rocks and oceans and soil and deserts and so on. But our planet actually has a consciousness, and she refers to herself as Gaia. This happened on one trip where Albert took me to underneath the North Pole into a deep cavern. We're traveling astrally there, of course. And all of a sudden I start having a conversation with somebody who identifies herself as the consciousness of Mother Earth. And so it was very interesting for me because I wasn't aware that there was a consciousness to our planet. But, not only does Earth, but all the other planets have a consciousness as well. And she was a very sort of wise, compassionate soul, because she was fiercely protective of her flora and fauna. She really wanted to protect her environment so that her plants and all of her animals, including humans, could flourish and grow and prosper. And so that was her main objective, is to try to make things, keep things in balance. And she says the problem that she has is that since humans became so invasive, and since they became so technologically advanced since the Industrial Revolution, we've been causing a lot of pollution, and we've been even more abusive than before to the other animals on our planet. And she's very distressed at this. And she really doesn't understand why we can't understand that it's just wrong and detrimental to our well-being to be polluting our planet. But it seems like some of us are becoming more aware of it, and we're certainly doing better at curtailing our environmental abuse, but we still have a long ways to go, and there's a lot of people who just don't seem to care about it. And she said, here's the interesting thing. She says she actually has the capability to increase the frequency and intensity of natural disasters on our planet, what we call natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes and floods and droughts and so on. And she has been doing that a bit more lately because she wants to shoot a warning shot across our bow to make us wake up and realize that if we don't make some changes, it could end up very badly for us. And so what a lot of people call climate change or global warming, that's really just Gaia, orchestrating some changes to the environment in order to make us wake up and realize that we have to change our ways. So very interesting conversation. She doesn't dislike humanity. She just wishes that we acted with more respect for her and the other animals on our planet.
Okay, speaking of animals, let's transition to the next break. Hang on, hold that thought, okay? Because we're going to take a quick break and come back with more of Albert's instructions and this fascinating trip he's gone on with Garnet. You're listening to Empower Radio, Conscious Living.
Do you get tired of styling your hair every day? And do you want a good hairstyle every day? Hi, I'm Sarah Schuster. I went on a website called inventnow.org, and after that, I decided to invent something too. Something called the Insta-Do. Just imagine, you just put it over your head like a helmet does, and you pick your hairstyle with the buttons on the side. Then you can have instant hairstyle in seconds. People like it. People like Jeff Bart.
I like it.
And people like Kenneth. It's this helmet thing, and it fits over your head, and it's great. Thank you, Kenneth. You should go to inventnow.org, and it could help you come up with your own invention. After all, look at me on the radio now.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions, or just play some games at inventnow.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the National Inventors Hall of Fame Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Do you get tired of styling your hair every day? And do you want a good hairstyle every day? Hi, I'm Sarah Schuster. I went on a website called inventnow.org, and after that, I decided to invent something too. Something called the Insta-Do. Just imagine, you just put it over your head like a helmet does, and you pick your hairstyle with the buttons on the side. Then you can have instant hairstyle in seconds. People like it. People like Jeff Bart.
I like it.
And people like Kenneth. It's this helmet thing, and it fits over your head, and it's great. Thank you, Kenneth. You should go to inventnow.org, and it could help you come up with your own invention. After all, look at me on the radio now.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions, or just play some games at inventnow.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the National Inventors Hall of Fame Foundation, and the Ad Council.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home where I belong. I'm home, and I love it. I'm home where I belong.
It's always nice to come home, but these days, many Americans are at risk of foreclosure and losing their homes. Fortunately, help is available. Making Home Affordable is a free program from the U.S. government that has already helped over 1 million struggling homeowners, and we want to help you.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home.
Find out now what your options are. Go to makinghomeaffordable.gov or call 1-888-995-HOPE. The sooner you act, the better chance we can help you.
I'm home, where I belong.
Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Hello there. This is Conscious Living. I'm Wendy Garrett. Empower Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Today's guest has written 3 books. He's had some incredible, extraordinary. How do you combine that word? Extraordinary. Amazing. There you go. Anyway, he's some amazing experiences with his spirit guide, Albert. And some of this I think is so wonderful because it's an example of how the world can open up when you allow it and you let your reality shift your frame of reference. And I mean your reality shift your frame of reference, because for us, we get caught in these little boxes, and sometimes this little box is all that's real until you have something that shakes your entire format and says, look up, look out, look around. Hello. Are you really paying attention? And Albert was one of those things. Were you really paying attention? So at first, Garnet sees him as a person, as physical, as someone you could reach out and shake their hand and touch. And then from then on, once they make that transition, they go into this realm of connecting on a different plane, dreams, real, whatever, but Albert doesn't have to be physical anymore. He's made that connection. And I wanted to get into the animal stuff too, but I wanted to kind of set the tone, Garnet, because this is something that more and more people are experiencing, these types of things. And at first, it's really hard when you want to tell somebody, because it's so cool. You want to tell somebody, and you're afraid that, for one thing, they will never ever talk to you again, or they'll tell everybody else that you're crazy. But it's just so cool. You want to share it. What was Albert's way of conditioning you, of helping you make this adjustment? Or, I mean, is that a good way to put it?
Well, he's very persuasive, and he's gently persuasive. Like he kept on when he first said to me, "I'd like you to write a book about my revelations." I was sort of taken aback because I'd never even dreamed of writing a book. I had no intention to do so. I dug my heels in and I sort of resisted. But over a series of weeks, he kept on gently giving me nudges to that effect, that I should move in that direction. And after a while, it just worked. And I was, as I mentioned, I was concerned about the reaction of some of my former friends and colleagues and clients. But Albert just basically said to me, if you don't do this, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. It's something that you have to do, and you know in your heart that you need to do it. And so why don't you just get on with it? And so after a while, his logic made so much sense that I said, okay, I'm just going to come out of the spiritual closet and let the chips fall where they may. And if I lose some people along the way, so be it, because I have my journey, they have their journey, and sometimes you have to part ways. And so that's happened. But it's been a great experience, as I said, and I've met so many new spiritually enlightened people that have really enriched my life. I mean, like radio hosts like yourself, Wendy. Before I made this transition, I would never have had the opportunity to talk to people like you, and so I'm becoming very enlightened by other people's perspective, and I'm being encouraged by other people. So it's been a very much of a life-changing, but a very enriching experience for me. So Albert has always been there, sort of gently guiding me and persuading me and coaching me and urging me on.
I think one of the things that is a commonality between those of us who go through these experiences is to go back and embrace just the moments and the connections and getting outside and getting away from a lot of that 9-to-5 autopilot stuff. It no longer, maybe to put it in a way, the competition no longer has the allure. I don't need to be first, second, third, best, better. None of that appeals. The awards, the accolades, that kind of, it's just like, it doesn't belong in my world now the way it used to at the beginning, when I thought, well, I've got to do this as good as somebody else. And if I'm not making a certain amount, or, making a certain, in terms of my career, a certain goal at a certain age, then I have missed the boat. And it was like, that all fell by the wayside. And I think those are speed bumps that we have to, in some way, shape, or form, acknowledge that exist to be able to say it's no longer important. And I'm sure those speed bumps for you, mine's just broadcasting, radio, and that kind of stuff. But for you, being a lawyer, I think you had a lot more of that kind of mentality to kind of to address, because you're in a very high, I think, type A environment where people have these expectations, and credibility and all of that is a factor. That had to be a big hurdle. And I don't want to take you back, but I'm trying to, for the listener, these things aren't easy. These shifts, just because we do them, it doesn't make it easy. It's a choice, and it's a conscious decision to say, my heart says this, I got to live my life in a way that my heart says, I did it my way. I did it a way I can know that I made a difference. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. No, and it's clearly sort of the path that I've been on. I was clearly in very much of a type A environment, and when I was practicing law, I was clearly a type A personality, and I've since had to make the shift, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens sort of gradually as you sort of move forward on the new path, as I did, and I'm sort of quite a way divorced now from that type A competitiveness that I had as a lawyer. And it's just a matter of realizing that, look, life on Earth is not a competition. We're not here to compete with other people. We're here to learn and experience things that we need for our growth and evolution as a soul. And we planned our lives beforehand to try to meet all these experiences, face all these lessons that we needed to learn. And that's sort of that's our goal here. It's not to accumulate more wealth or get bigger and better houses or cars or better jobs or any of this sort of thing. Even though that's our inclination as humans, we think that's what we're here for, but it's not really. We're here to learn and experience things. And once we realize that everybody out there is not a competitor, everybody out there is just a soul just like you having a human journey, and that we're all connected to each other and to the source, then competition just doesn't make any sense. If you have that point of view, you think, okay, the person that I see walking down the street is trying to experience the things they need for their evolution, and so am I. So why don't we help each other rather than try to compete or abuse each other? And that's really the sort of the change in attitude that I've gone through, and it's been a great change in my view. And I hope that more people, your listeners there, will think about that as they go through their life and realize, life's not a competition. We're here to really help ourselves and help each other.
And I think part of that too transcends to the other beings that are on our planet, because you have a more empathy and more awareness that it isn't just about humans. And that's when you get into some of this stuff too. You also meet other elements of reality that we would sometimes think is purely imagination, fairies and Sasquatch. And how did that play out?
Well, that was shortly after I had my meeting with Gaia. Albert said, Gaia has a lot of secrets up her sleeve, and more so than you can ever imagine. And he said, I'll just show you a couple, just to give you an example. And so first stop was in the Pacific Northwest in a secluded forest, and there I met with a Sasquatch. And she was her name was Zana, about 9 feet tall, had a sort of an ape-like head, and her very muscular body covered with dark brown hair. And we communicated by telepathy, and she says, yes, Sasquatches do exist. We've been living on Earth for eons alongside humans, but we don't have open contact with humans because we think that humans as a race are very violent and aggressive, and we just don't want to get anywhere near them. And she said that her species originated, eons ago in Africa when a now extinct primate from our Earth's past was artificially inseminated with sperm from a race of humanoid extraterrestrials, and so they are sort of the offspring of that union. And they've been around on all the continents except Antarctica, alongside humans, as I mentioned, but they live underground and they come out mainly at night. They're rarely spotted because they have what she described as sort of an animal-like radar where they can detect humans and other animals for many miles away just through their senses. And that's how they've been able to avoid humans so far in terms of open contact, with the odd exception, as you know, where people report seeing them or they leave a footprint here and there. But they've been pretty good at escaping detection. And she says that they really lament the fact that they can't live openly above ground alongside humans, and she wishes that humans would really change their violent ways so that they could live openly with us and in harmony with us. And she says, but until that happens, we're hiding because we just don't trust humans. And so there's an example of how, again, humans, because of our violent and aggressive nature, humans are basically making this species of animals that live on our planet hide underground because they need to avoid us. And so it was really a sort of a sad tale from her part, and I really felt sorry for her race, and I really wished that I could just pull out the magic wand and make humans change their ways so that we could live in harmony with this race of very intelligent, sensitive, beautiful creatures.
Okay, then going from that, there are other elements and other ways of being and seeing. You actually experienced connection with extraterrestrials on different planets. You traveled with Albert. See, there's so much to talk about. We can't cover it all in an hour. That's why there are 3 books, and that's why a 4th is coming. But could you illustrate what it's like to go to a different a completely different environment. And I believe this is the one where there were whales, and connect with that kind of a being. And what was the purpose and what was the result?
Yeah, this was he took me to a planet called Proteus, many light years from Earth. And it was entirely, I described this in my second book, Dancing Forever with Spirit, and it was entirely water covered. There were no land masses at all, but from space it kind of looked like Earth, just white clouds and blue ocean. And we submerged beneath the waters there, and there we met with a humpback whale and a dolphin, and we communicated by telepathy. And they said that they're very sensitive, intelligent creatures, and they stayed in communication with their cousins on Earth. And in fact, they said that most of the sea life from their on Earth was originally seeded from sea life on their planet a long time ago by extraterrestrials. So that's why the undersea environment looked very much like the undersea environment on Earth. And they said that they're in telepathic contact with their cousins on Earth, and they're very distressed at what they hear, because on their planet they don't have humans; they just have sea life and the kind of animals that live beneath the ocean, and so they live in very nice harmony in eco balance with their planet, and things go along just swimmingly. But what they hear from their cousins on Earth is that they're very distressed at the abuse that humans have been heaping on them over the years. Catching them in traps, hunting them on whaling ships, poisoning them with their pollution, capturing some of them and putting them in water parks. And they're very distressed at what they hear from their kin on Earth. And they implored me to go back to Earth and tell my fellow humans that it's just wrong for humans to treat, dolphins, whales, and even all the other animals on our planet in a crude and abusive manner without showing proper respect. And so it was very eye-opening to me because they're very intelligent, sensitive creatures. And in fact, in my third book, I actually had an encounter with a killer whale and an orca trapped in an aquarium on Earth, and her story was the same. She said, we're intelligent, sensitive, emotional creatures, much more intelligent than humans give us credit for. They communicate by telepathy as well, and their wish is that the humans would just leave them to live in harmony, free and without encumbrance in the ocean. And this particular orca had been born in the Pacific, was captured by humans and imprisoned in an aquarium. And she was just lamenting the fact that, why don't you let me free, because I want to just frolic in the blue waters of the Pacific once more. So it was a very similar tale to the one that I heard from the dolphins and whales on this water planet Proteus. And so it's an eye-opener, because we tend to think that if creatures like whales and dolphins can't speak to us in a language that we can understand, that they're just not intelligent, which is very far from the truth. In fact, in a lot of ways, they're more intelligent than humans, because they can communicate by telepathy. Most humans cannot. And so they're very advanced in a number of different ways. So it's very much of an eye-opening excursion for me.
Okay, and let's, on that happy note, telepathy. Are you getting better at that? Do you hear people's thoughts? Because I know once this starts, it's a different way of connecting, and it can become more pronounced and more easily accessed.
Yeah, I'm becoming better at not so much sort of hearing thoughts in a conversational sense, but be able to feel emotions and feelings from other people, so that comes across as a sense rather than a verbal communication. So I'm becoming better at that, and I certainly with my wife and even my little dog Abby, I can see more often. I can understand what she wants even before she barks or says anything to me. So I'm becoming more empathetic with animals and other people. And I think that's just part of because of my encounters with Albert. And I wish I could do it better, but it's a learning process, and I am getting better over time for sure.
I agree. That's one of the things I've noticed. And if you're listening, one of these things that you can help and test yourself is working with animals, because animals don't block the way humans do. And it's not intentional. It's just they're easy to read. They're so upfront, and so their thoughts are focused a little bit better. Humans are a little muddier. We're more convoluted. We've got all sorts of drama, where animals are like, outside. Okay? Outside. It's not rocket science, but they also will tell you, they will tell you that when they know you're hurting or they know somebody else is hurting. I had a wonderful German Shepherd, and he knew if it was a child, an adult, it didn't matter. He knew the pain, and he would go up and he would just make himself available to help them kind of bliss out for a moment. And that was his role. He was an absolute wonderful German Shepherd who knew that he could help people heal. And it wasn't anything that he needed to say. His actions portrayed that. And I think there are a lot of animals who have an agenda to help us upgrade our own awareness. And telepathy is something I do believe that we are on target toward acquiring and enhancing and upgrading to once we get over our everything has to be out loud kind of mentality.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think
and it's got something that humans clearly have the capability of developing, the ability to communicate by telepathy. We just have to, focus on trying to get there and use more of our brain power. And then, someday we will all be able to do that. But we really can learn a lot from animals, as you say, and not only just direct telepathic communication with dolphins and whales like I had, which Albert facilitated. Like I couldn't, when I'm not traveling with Albert, I can't go up to a dolphin tank and communicate with him directly. I can only do it when Albert's with me and we're in astral form. But I do get a lot of messages from my pet dog, as you mentioned, and it's really quite amazing that they are very focused and their minds aren't cluttered with a lot of other thoughts that humans have. They don't think about the past or the future. They're sort of really focused in the present, and that comes across clearly. And we have a lot to learn from animals, for sure.
I just had experiences when they would tell each other what was going on. And there was one time when there was somebody who was threatening to them, and the whole crew in the room called this person a name. And I was just shocked because I could hear this going on. I could hear this conversation. I'm like, what the heck? But they knew, and they knew this person was, had ulterior motives and wasn't what was represented. And so I got an insight just because of that, and having the ability to kind of be quiet and allow that information to come in. And they were connecting with each other, and it was pretty much a warning of, and they felt that they were threatened and in danger. And this was something that blew me away. 2004 maybe. And so I've had a chance to, go beyond that. But it's just amazing when these things first start happening and you get included in this wonderful world of connection that doesn't require our type of language. It's a language that's even better because other things don't get in the way. It's very honest, very direct, and incredibly, I think, full of heart. It's a language that I think has so much more compassion, even though, yes, animals do kill each other. That's just, but there's another element in there that they do have a different kind of awareness that we are missing, and they are so much more dependent on these resources that we're gradually making extinct all across our planet to live just like we are. And they're here saying, hey guys, you got to stop somewhere. This is Earth Day's coming up, and this is when we're doing the show. Is there something that Albert has given you that would be timely in terms of this show?
Sorry, would be which, Wendy?
Timely, the message that we could kind of condense into his message of get your act together now.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of it stems from my meeting with Gaia and seeing some of the other fabled creatures that are in hiding because of what humans are doing, like the Sasquatch. I met with an Irish fairy, and their message was all the same. They said, why can't you guys just learn to live in harmony with your planet and with the other animals? Why do you have to be so abusive? Why do you have to conquer everything? Why can't you just understand that everything on our planet, all the other creatures in our planet themselves, they all have their own place in the universe, and it's not they were put there for humans to abuse them, and disrespect them. And so they just don't really understand why humans, have carried on the way they have. And so the plea for them is, we all live on this very beautiful planet, and it's everyone's job to make sure that our planet can do its job to present a very balanced ecosystem for all things to flourish in, not just humans. And especially humans have to really focus on the fact that they are doing things which are very disruptive to their ecosystem. And so they harm their planet, they harm the other animals who share our planet, harm themselves, basically. And so we really need to focus on the fact that we really have to respect and honor our Mother Earth and honor and respect the other animals and give them their own rightful place, on our planet and in the universe. And if we can focus on that, then we can all eventually live in peaceful harmony with each other, which is really where we should be, not where we are right now, which is really sort of quite a ways off course.
Now, can you request, I know you're on book 4 now, but can you request an audience there's Native Americans are in connection with this wonderful group of people, the Little People. And can you request an audience with another, I guess, another, I don't know what we would call them, form of being, I guess, would be the way I would say it. Can you request an audience with something like that, or is Albert pretty much on his own agenda?
Well, I can request it, but he doesn't always honor my request because he has his own agenda. And so if he thinks that it's important for me to meet somebody else that I've requested, he'll let me do that and write about it. And if he thinks that he's got other things that are more important, then he just takes me off on where he wants me to go. So I can do it. I don't always get my requests, Wendy, but I'll certainly, next time I see Albert, I'll certainly put in the request and see what he says.
Well, they're very strong, and that at least, or a strong presence in Native American folklore. And I thought, well, that might be an interesting one to hear from. But the other thing too is, you're going on, is he giving you any kind of outcome, future of the planet, of humans, of, evolution? Does he give you any of that?
No, he refuses to give me sort of a glimpse into the future. But he does say that he's very optimistic about our future, and he thinks that humans will have the ability to turn themselves around and get back on the right track. But he says it's not just going to happen on its own, that we need a lot of people to work very hard and to focus on that goal so that we can get there. And so he's really saying, you can do it, but you have to work at it, and you and everyone else, and you have to spread the message, and you have to not only live it yourself, but you have to encourage other people to live and walk that path as well. So he didn't say one way or the other how it would turn out, but by his optimism to me, he basically said, it's not a lost cause. There's a lot of hope for you guys, so keep on working at it. So that's the only thing I get from him.
Where did Albert come from? I know he's a spirit guide now. Was he a human once?
Oh yes, yeah, he was. He's had many human incarnations. In fact, he and I have had several together ourselves in the past, and he described a few of them to me. So he's a soul much more advanced than I am, who's been incarnating on Earth in the past. And right now, he's not doing that. He's my spirit guide. He's probably guides for a number of other people. He's also using other people as messengers. So right now, his mission is to spread the message from spirit. And so he's not incarnating, but he may choose to do so again in the future. Sometimes, as Albert says, sometimes souls who don't need to learn and experience anything more on the Earth plane will incarnate on Earth just to help others on their journeys. And so he may come back at some point. But he refuses to get into details about himself any more than that he and I have had a few past lives together on Earth. And I've often asked him if he's the master soul, and he refuses to answer, but I suspect that he probably is. But he won't say anything more than that. He only tells me what he thinks that I need to know and I should write about, and everything else he sort of mums. So he can be very inscrutable at times, Wendy.
I imagine that with a lawyer, huh? Okay, so you've got an event coming up in June, I believe. Give us a little tease on that.
Sure. June 10th to 13th, it's the Galactic Wisdom Conference in Olympia, Washington. And it's sponsored and organized by Ted Marr, who's the host of Out of This World Radio in Seattle. And so it's there'll be a number of speakers. I'm one of them. And so this is the second annual one. It sounds like a great lineup. If you Google Galactic Wisdom Conference, you'll get the lineup of speakers. It looks very interesting, and I'm very pleased to be one of the presenters. And I encourage anyone who's in the area or who can make the journey to show up and listen to this the wonderful lineup of speakers.
What is the funnest thing you've had in this experience with Albert? Was there a standout event that just made the whole thing worthwhile?
Well, everything's been worthwhile, but I tell you the most exhilarating event, there's sort of two. One was that I described in my second book where I got to actually visit a focal point of the source, which is sort of like a central sun, and I got immersed into this sun, and I was just sort of totally surrounded by pure unconditional love, like an amazing emotional and intellectual high. it was a very exhilarating experience, sort of to be sort of merged in with one of the focal points of the source. So that was one of the high points. The other one, which I describe in my third book, was basically on the spirit side. I met with another spirit called Votan, and he basically showed me what they do frequently on the spirit side. He basically stepped into me, and there was sort of a merger of our energies, and it was an exhilarating, ecstatic, experience. It was like really hard to describe. It was like it left me sort of aching with pleasure from the rapturous dance that he engaged me in, and then he stepped back, and I describe it much better in my book, but he basically said that I just enjoyed the dance of heavenly bliss, which is where the book title came from. And he said this is something that souls on the spirit side do frequently and openly, and it's just a way of expressing their love for each other by a merger of their divine energies for a few temporary moments. And so that was an amazing experience. And he said this is something I can look forward to when I cross over permanently myself. And I said, you got that right. I can hardly wait to do that again. It was an amazing. It's probably the closest thing you could come to saying that they have sex on the spirit side. It was an amazing experience. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Thank you.